Hey kids, what time is it? It's time for another Klipsch review. Yeah, I do a lot of them because, I don't know, they just do something for me. And this time, it's the Klipsch Heresy IV. Now, I did the Heresy III. I reviewed the Heresy III in 2013 for CNET. I just read it. And yeah, I loved it. It was a party speaker. It was a fun speaker. So yeah, how will the Heresy IV stack up? Well, I'll just tell you, before I turn the camera on, I played the Ramones' first album. The song was Listen to My Heart, and I cranked it up because that's what these speakers are for. That's what they do. They play loud very, very well. They're like the 3, it's a party speaker, but I think this new one, the 4, is a more refined, more together speaker. I should point out the original Heresy, I think it was called the H or some Project H, something like that, came out in 1957. So this is a speaker with a long, long, long heritage, you know. And it's deep. It's deep. The heritage is deep. The sound is deep. And reviewing this kind of speaker is just so much fun because there's a lot to talk about. So like the others, it's a 3-way design with a 1-inch titanium compression driver mounted in a Tractrix horn. The mid-range is a 1.75-inch polyimide driver in a Tractrix horn. And actually that driver, that mid-range driver, is the exact same driver that's used in the Cornwall 4. That's pretty cool. Now then there's a 12-inch woofer. Now, I got to point out that all of the previous models of Heresy with the 12-inch woofer were sealed box design, acoustic suspension designs. And this one isn't. It has a rear-mounted port, but rather than the usual round ports that most companies use, or a slotted port, this is a Tractrix port. It looks like one of the horns that's used in the front of the speaker is now in the back, but it's not for a driver, it's the port. Back there, you'll also see a set of binding posts, by-wire posts. They're metal connectors. They feel really solid, really, really nicely done. And speaking of nice, the wood finish, now my sample here is finished in walnut. Beautiful, beautiful walnut. You can get it in cherry. You can get it in what they call distressed oak or black wood finish. And all the prices are the same, I believe, for all the different finishes, which are $14.99 per speaker, or I would call that $3,000 a pair. So I think we got most of the nuts and bolts out of the way. Oh, the sensitivity is 99 dB, so it is extremely sensitive. Far more, most speakers are in the high 80s, low 90s. This is 99, meaning you can use it with very low powered amplifiers and it can really sing. I will get to that shortly. It's an 8-ohm design. So it's the form factor of the Heresies has always been kind of unusual. It's a floor standing speaker, but it's only 25 inches high. So it's pretty squat as 3-way speakers go and floor standing speakers go. So it doesn't really dominate a room. It's just sort of there. It's 15 inches wide, 15 something inches wide, and 13 or so inches. And it weighs 45 pounds. It is designed and made in the United States, if you care. I think in terms of specs and numbers and things, that's all I can get it out of my head right now. And I will link, of course, to the website, and you can get more detailed information if that's what you need. Because the Heresy has such extremely high sensitivity, I want to use it with a bunch of different low-powered amplifiers. And the lowest of which was the Risong A10, which is 6 watts a channel. And you know what? Combination worked, played reasonably loud. It had enough tube juiciness to keep me happy. And that amp is like $360 or so on Amazon. The price changes. It's made in China, as you might expect for that kind of money. But it's a gorgeous amp. I will link to the review below. But it's a super impressive amp. And if you want to squeeze in the Heresy, but it's kind of like your budget's blown by on the speakers and you don't have much for an amp and you want to just get going, this little Risong amp, the A10, would be perfect for that application. Now, it's not the ultimate, but for the money, it's super impressive. Moving way up from that, I used a 25 watt per channel Unison Trio 25, which is about, I forget off the top of my head, about $4,000. Gorgeous, made in Italy, sumptuous, very tubey, great amp. Again, I will link to that review below. I also used a couple of Nelson Pass amps, 1st watt J2, a 1st watt SIT3, a Pass Labs XA25, and something else I can't think of off the top of my head. But I used it with a bunch of basically low-powered amplifiers and cranked the hell out of these speakers. And yes, they play loud very, very well. It's fun. It's like a fast car kind of thing. You know, they get up and go. But you know, the interesting thing is that you can play the Heresy IV at really quiet, late night kind of listening level, and you don't feel compelled to turn it up to get the detail. You can play it nice and soft, very, very impressive. You play it medium loud, nice, really nice too. But you want to slam it down and hit it hard, definitely, no hesitation, these speakers play loud with ease, considering their very, very, very small size as high-performance speakers go. So let's talk a little bit about placement and toe-in. First thing, don't put this speaker in a corner. You don't put a speaker with a 12-inch woofer in a corner and expect to have smooth bass. The bass is going to be really boomy and loud, and if you want mucho bass, okay, put it in a corner. But if you want the bass to be reasonably smooth, you're going to have to get it at least, let's say, two or 3 feet away from the corner. Same with the back wall. You can get it a foot or so from the wall would be okay, but a little more might be good too. Experimentation is always worthwhile. But the main thing that changes the sound of this speaker is toe-in. Now, you can play them basically with no toe-in, where they're parallel to the wall behind them. And the sound is very large, very spacious, and very diffuse. That is, the soundstage is kind of out of focus. It's kind of blurry. But as you toe them in, aim towards the listening position, it gets sharper and sharper and sharper in terms of soundstage definition and depth. It really tightens up a lot, but it also gets brighter. Less toe-in gives you a softer, mellower sound. You adjust to taste, basically. Season to taste that amount of toe-in, and you'll be a happy camper. But it's nice to have that kind of tunability in the sound of a speaker. I like that part a lot. My preference, for the most part, is to have very moderate toe-in. I don't know in degrees what that would be, maybe 15 degrees or so. But again, it's going to be a room situation, a personal preference, the partnering electronics, everything makes a difference. And that's the thing, everything makes a difference. It's not that I would call it a high resolution speaker. It definitely shows up differences between the amplifiers, between tube amplifiers, one to another, and solid state amplifiers. Everything is very clear that you can hear differences in amps, which is, again, I like that. I really do. Oh, one other thing that the designer Roy Delgado recommends, if you want to have a really wide sweet spot, so in other words, a lot of people can hear the sound focused, what you do is you do extreme toe-in, so the sound of the two speakers basically crosses, let's say, 2 or 3 feet in front of the center spot. So that way, the left speaker is aimed at the right listener, and the right speaker is aimed at the left listener. I hope that makes sense. Maybe I'll draw a picture to illustrate what he's talking about. But I tried that, and it does really work. It's super cool, because the speaker is highly directional. That's what horns are. So you can play with toe-in, play with placement, and hours of fun, because it'll sound different in every situation, as all good speakers do. I've never met a great speaker that doesn't require time and energy and experimentation to bring out its best. It just works that way. That's what good speakers do. You know, average, like blah speakers kind of sound the same no matter what, right? They're never going to get great. Oh, I should mention that this speaker's low end goes down in my room to about 50 hertz, which is about 10 hertz deeper than the Cornwall 3 did. The Cornwall 3 had a 12-inch woofer, but since it was a sealed box and it was tuned for sensitivity, didn't make a lot of deep bass. This new one makes considerably more. Goes down to 50, and it's not like it doesn't fall off a cliff at 50, it's trailing off at 50. So it goes into the 40s in real rooms. Oh, I should point out, so I still have the Cornwall 4s on hand. That's my current reference speaker here. It's twice the price. Cornwall 4 is twice the price of the Heresy 4. But it's a lot bigger. And it sounds bigger. It's got more oomph, more weight. I was going to say gravitas, but people tell me that's not the correct use of the word. It's got more and it's no surprise because it's a much bigger speaker. So if you have a very large room and you really want to party and play concert level loud sounds, maybe the Heresy 4 is not going to quite come up to snuff. It plays loud with ease, considering its very small size, being 25 inches tall. But if you really want to party and you got a big room, go for the gusto and get the Cornwall 4 instead. So what do they sound like, Steve? Come on, stop beating around the bush. Okay, I'm sorry. What do they sound like? They sound like live music, and that comes from their dynamic life, their dynamic ability. They just play loud with ease. And if you play recordings that aren't compressed, that have some dynamic life to them, it'll just slam you back in the chair. That's what they do. That's what horns do, and that's what this speaker does. This is the entry-level speaker of Klipsch's heritage line, meaning speakers that have been around for decades and decades. It's the smallest, but it still has that sound. It still does that thing that you want a horn speaker to do. Play dynamics without hesitation, without feeling like they're holding back. So then I pulled out the Black Keys brother, and I put the pedal to the metal. And yes, again, it's kind of like what I was saying before. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but the speaker just encourages that. It's going, yeah, bring it on, brother. And I did, and it was fantastic. Okay, but then I eased back. So then I said, oh, enough with the loud stuff. Let me play something with some more delicacy. So I played some early Ry Cooder albums. Right? You know, Ry Cooder is an amazing guitarist, mostly acoustic, but he also plays electric. And that sense of being in a room, because you could hear, these are recordings from, I guess, the mid-70s, and you can sense that studio space that he's in. The spaces between the instruments was just so clear. And, you know, a lot of what's going on here is leading edge, that you can hear the transients on instruments, on guitars, on drums, with rare get up and go. You know, they just jump more through this speaker. That's what they do. Okay, Steve, so what are its weaknesses? Okay, let me put it this way. First of all, I think its overall balance is sort of forward, aggressive, a little in your face. That may not suit you, that may not suit your room or your musical tastes. I wouldn't say if you listen to a lot of classical music or mostly acoustic music that it's the right speaker for you. It's more about liveness and immediacy and a direct quality that I really like. But if you need more space, more restraint, more depth to your sound, maybe the Heresy 4 isn't the right one for you. The bass is bigger than it used to be on the Heresy 3 and the 2 presumably, but it's still not a big bass, you know, busting speaker. That's not the key thing. The bass is clean, it's defined, fairly deep, but it's not for bass heads. Or you could just use a Heresy 4 and then get a sub to handle the bottom, let's say under 50, 60 hertz. And that might be the sweet spot for a lot of people. But anyway, the overall impression is this is a fun speaker, more refined than its previous version, than the previous Heresies. It's made in America for people who care about such things. It's got personality. I am drawn to speakers that have a distinct personality. If you're itching for neutral, probably not for you. Go buy a studio monitor to get your neutrality. I think my work here is at last complete. My name is Steve Guttenberg. This is the Audiophiliac Daily Show, coming to you right now 5 days a week. If you dig it, please, I urge you, hit that subscribe button right down there. Yeah, right down there. And when you do, you got to hit the notification bell to be notified. If you just subscribe without the notification bell, you probably won't be aware of every new episode as it comes out. Definitely, the best part of all, definitely, is my Patreon at patreon.com/audiophiliac. But while you're here, hey, you're here right now, be here now. Check out my playlist. There's playlists for more speaker reviews and electronics reviews and headphone reviews and music reviews and interviews. Oh my God, hours and hours of fun. Now with all that out of the way, I can now say thank you so much for watching, and I really, really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon.